Bob Goalby. Tonight we honor a man who for over a half a century defined golf in this area. We're proud to present Bob Goalby with the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame's Lifetime Achievement Award. To say that Bob was and is competitive, well, in high school he played basketball. He fouled out of 14 consecutive games. If you had the ball, he wanted the damn thing. Bob went to the University of Illinois and decided that golf was his future. He turned pro in 1952, 1958. He played in every tournament on the tour, 42 of them that year. During his career, he won a number of tournaments on the tour and played on the Ryder Cup team. But Bob reached the top of the mountain April 14th, 1968, when Augusta National, he had 2 birdies and an eagle in the final 6 holes and won the Masters. So forever, Bob will wear the green jacket, golf's greatest tournament. By the way, you can relive this, and this is really recent. They have released video of a lot of the Masters, and the video of the final round from 1968 is on YouTube. I found it the other day and I got chills just watching it. It's true, it's in black and white, but all you gotta do is go to YouTube and type in Masters and there it is. By the way, speaking of that, if you went to look for some used golf clubs at Goodwill, you might see this. And you know what it is? Well, it's a putter, although the guys on the tour right now would probably not recognize it. They say, you want me to putt with that thing? You know, the current putters are about as big as a 3-wood. This happens to be the putter that Bob Goalby won the Masters with. We have it in the Hall of Fame. He had 2 birdies and an eagle the last few holes. The eagle was on 15 at Augusta National. And then he had this excruciating putt on 18 to win the tournament with this putter. Looks like something you'd go to Goodwill and get. But he's loaned it to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and we're proud to have it. But if you want to come up and take a look at it, well, it's old. And it's very small. I would imagine if you gave that to a current player, they said, not a chance. What was the prize money for winning the Masters in 1968? Any guesses? $20,000. Today, the touring pro gets $20,000 for getting out of the sponsor's car in the parking lot. He joined the Senior Tour, now the Champions Tour, and made major contributions in the formation and structure of that tour. There's so much more we could tell you about Bob Goalby. We're going to let Jay Randolph do the honors. Jay, my partner on Channel 5 for some 17 years, by the way, worked on that NBC telecast that you can find on YouTube of the 68 Masters. They just televised the last 9 holes, and it's black and white, but it's really, really good. And so Jay actually worked the Masters that Bob won. So here is Bob Goalby and Jay Randolph.
What a wonderful evening. So nice to see so many old friends here this evening, and certainly this event has grown in its interest, and what a great group we have here tonight. Just a word or two personally. Great to have Peter Jacobson here, one of the most versatile and talented men that I have ever known in any sport. And it's mentioned all that he's done for charities and all that he's done for the game. I remember you came here to St. Louis to play in our old Challenge Cup match. And you came at a reduced rate, thank you. And I'll never forget that. But Peter and I have had a lot of fun over the years. And he's doing a brilliant job these days with his work at NBC. But he's done so much in the Portland area over the years as well for charity, and it's really great to see. Jay Haas is just an iconic figure in the world, and I broadcast that first win of yours at Torrey Pines, and I'll never forget it. And I was a big fan of the singer as well. He was a really nice man, and We could go on and on and on, but let's talk about Bob, because there are a few things you might not know. He was a great athlete as a youngster and went to Illinois on a football scholarship. And let's just start with your turning professional. What made you decide to go out and play professional golf, try to get involved?
Jay, I was born in 100 George at St. Clair Country Club across the river in Belleville, Illinois. And I started caddying there when I was 8 years old. My parents naturally weren't a member there, but I caddied there and I'd sneak over every night and play. In those days, women and children didn't play golf, so the golf course was sort of wide open at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock in the evening. And the golf pro, Frank Moore, who was originally here at Meadowbrook in St. Louis, he knew I could play halfway decent, and he never did run me off. He'd just come up and say, "You're getting too close to the clubhouse. Get your ass on the other end." That's how I learned to play golf by myself, basically. In the evening, and watching players and change. I didn't like his grip, or I liked his grip, and I copied the good players. You can learn to play golf just by watching good players. A lot of people, you never want to play with bad players if you can help it. You always want to play with somebody your level or a little better, because that makes you more observant and you'll be a little better player if you try to play with better players all the time. Sometimes they don't want you, but push yourself in that game. But that's how I got started playing golf, long before I played any other sport. So I know I played baseball. I was a halfway decent baseball player, but I never did like the game because standing on the field, it was 85 degrees, and I would have been, man, I wish I was playing golf today. What the hell am I doing here? Once you get the golf bug, you never leave it. It stays with you the rest of your life. But that's how I got started playing golf, and I worked on the course when I was in high school and college for 5 years and cut greens and pull weeds or whatever you have to do when you're on a golf course. You work pretty hard for 50 cents an hour, I'll tell you that. I know that much.
Bob, to make the decision to go out and turn professional, was there any one person or any one situation that made you decide to do that?
No, actually, I had a little chip on my shoulder because most people said I was crazy. You know, but Ron said I turned pro in 1952. I actually turned pro in 56. I was in the Army. I was drafted in the Army during the Korean War in the early 50s, and I didn't see a club for 2 years when I got out. I was a good player before I went in, but I was an 80 shooter when I got out. And it took me a couple months to get going again, and I went back to college for a year, and I decided I wanted to play golf for a living, but a couple of golf pros here in St. Louis, I'm not going to mention their name, they're gone now, but they laughed when I said I was going to turn pro because they said you'd never make it, you know, and then, but I had that chip that somebody had to knock it off and on my shoulder. Well, anyway, I scratched around, I made it. The first tournament I played it in as a pro, 30th place was $100, and there was a $12,000 tournament down in Florida in Orlando, and I finished 30th. I shot 64 the last round to finish 30th, and I tied Art Wall, George Baer, Leo Biaghetti, and Walter Berkemo and myself, and we got $20 apiece. It's in the press book. In 1957, I won $20. And actually, if you think about it, in those days, if you made the cut, you were in the next week in the tournament. And I made the cut. That was the last tournament of the year, and I was in the LA Open the next. I didn't know where the LA was. And I took off in a '53 Plymouth, and not too good of a car. No, I didn't have a radio, but I had a heater, and I had $1,300 saved up, and I thought I was going to beat Snead and Hogan and Palmer and Middlecoff and Demerit and Nelson. I thought I was going to beat all those guys, but I went out there, and lo and behold, I scratched around through the winter tour and made the cut quite a few times, and I ended up making enough money to keep going. I was working up in Connecticut, and I called the pro and said, Angie was his first one, Monero, his cousin won the 1936 U.S. Open in Maldesroe. Anyway, I was working for him. He kind of got mad because I wasn't coming back. But hell, I don't blame him. He only paid me $3,500 for the summer. I'd like to get me back too for that. But that's how much money I made as an assistant pro. They didn't make much money. assistant pros didn't, but that's how I got started, and that $20 got the chip off my shoulder, and I felt I could play.
Bob, you had so many good friends on tour. In the years that I broadcast the game, so many people talk glowingly about how you had helped them and your friendship, but I suppose I would want to, because he was so dear to me, to have you talk a little bit about Samuel Jackson Snead.
Well, Sam and I were real good friends. 3 times he came to St. Clair Country Club for me and played in our little tournament over there. And Sam was a great player and a great guy. He was a lot better person than most people thought. He was a little grumpy with the press and with the gallery, but he was a good guy. He gave more caddies money and loaned more money to different golf pros. Ralph Goodall was his partner in the Miami 4-ball one year just before Christmas, and they won the tournament, and each won $2,500. And Ralph said, you know, I could sure use that 25 you got, Sam. I'm getting married. I could buy some furniture. So Sam gave him the $2,500 check in 1940. And we're fishing one time up below the James Bay up in Canada, just the 2 of us. They flew us in a pontoon plane, and we're sitting in this boat. And I was telling you about playing football with the 4th Division in the Army with his nephew. Well, anyway, I said this nephew he told me that you gave him a 36 Ford Roadster with a 42 Mercury engine and superchargers on the side with 13 coats of lacquer paint on it. And he jumped up and almost turned the motor. He said, that little so-and-so, he gave me 8 1/4. Instead, he gave me 25 and still owes me 8 1/4. Now he got thinking I was going back to Ralph Goodall in the wind back in Miami. He got his wallet out. And he said, you know, he got telling me about Ralph Goodall borrowing that money from him. He said he got down the bottom of his billfold and he blew a little dust out, brought this yellow piece of paper out, and there it says, I owe you $2,500, Ralph Goodall. He's been carrying that thing for about 50 years in his wallet. He said, you know, I think I'm going to give that to my lawyer and see if I can't get that. Well, Ralph died the next month. Sam Snead he loved the Masters. He loved the Champions Dinner. One year at the dinner, I told this story here before, one of the Hall of Fame dinners. I was standing, we were with 4 or 5 guys, but behind me was Gary Player and Palmer and Jackie Burke and Nelson and somebody else, I can't remember. But anyway, Snead used to come through the French doors and he'd kick the door jamb as he walked through without straining. This one year he came, everybody clapped. This one year he came through, he went up about halfway, he said, no, the old man can't do it anymore. And Gary said, Mom, he said, I never thought I'd see the day when the great Sambo couldn't kick that door jamb. Palmer said, I'll bet you 200 he can still kick it. And they threw 200 apiece on the floor. Palmer said, Sam, are you pulling our leg or can't you kick it anymore? Went back out, walked through, kicked it just like I'm raising my hand. I know to this day that Palmer and Snead split that too. Sam was very proud. He could get the ball out of the bottom of the cup when he was 85 without bending his knees. He was quite the athlete and quite the man. He won the Virginia State track championship himself one year. He won 4 events. They wouldn't let him run the 4 events the next year. The principal of the school said, you can only run in 1 event because we don't want a one-man track team. Today they'd make a hero out of him. Bo, I loved your father. I played the last 2 rounds in 1982, 81 at Oakland Hills, the U.S. Open. We went up there together to play in his second senior open. We played 2 practice rounds together. What a guy and what a player. Nice to see you. I saw Jim Oakgrave in here before, and I don't know if they introduced you or not, Jim, but it's nice to see you, a great player here in St. Louis for many, many years. And he was a good player on the senior tour, now the champions. I was involved from the start of the senior tour.
Yeah, I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, okay. I'll shut up then.
No. I don't never want to shut you up. But let me say this. You had the opportunity to be involved through what was a tournament called the Legends of Golf, Liberty Mutual Legends of Golf. And the fellow that produced that program had produced the Wide World of Golf. He wasn't a golfer.
Shell's was.
Yeah, that's right, Shell's Wonderful World of Golf. And he was not a golfer, he never played. But we got that tournament on NBC, and it really was what started the senior tour and what today is the Champions Tour.
Well, there's no doubt about it. That was the start of the senior tour. It started in '78 back in Austin, Texas at Onion Creek Country Club. And he said Fred Raphael, he started it. He never played golf himself, but he had two of the most successful golf shows ever on television. The first year at the Legends of Golf, Snead and Gardner Dickinson birdied the last 3 holes to beat Peter Thompson and Kel Nagel and won up on 72 holes. The second year, they had a 6-hole playoff between Boris, Roberto DiVincenzo, Art Wall, and Tommy Bull. And Roberto and Boris, they birdied the last 6 holes, or the first 6 holes in the playoff, and they won one up on the 6th hole. It was a great show, went into prime time in New York, and that's kind of got the senior tour going. A few people around the country said, hey, those little dogs can still play. He said, how do we get them in our club? And we got thinking, and we ended up with 2 tournaments in '80. Then we had 7 in '81 and 17 in '83. And from there, we ended up with 42, which was too many. And these guys have cut back to about 30 or so now. And that's just about the right amount for old guys. They've been playing for 50 years on the other tour. They got their pockets full of money, so they don't need to play.
More importantly, you were involved, and it was a great group of guys. The Merritt was still alive, of course, but you were involved in negotiating the first television contracts for the Champions Tour.
Well, we were lucky. We had I worked for Don Omar with NBC with Jay for 13 years, and Don Omar said there was interest in senior golf. Beeman, the commissioner, was telling us there was no interest in senior golf. We asked him if we could sell it ourselves, and we went to New York twice with our own money. Snead and Boris, and I remember, and Gardner Dickinson, Doug Ford, and Dan Sykes, and we ended up selling it to Mazda for $200,000. 8 tournaments we got on television. We got $200,000. It wasn't the money, but it was exposure. Without that, we couldn't get off the ground. We couldn't get in the newspaper. And after the television market took a hold of the senior tour, it got us going, and that's where it is today. These boys are still playing, and they love the competition. The money's great, but you can't hardly quit playing competitively when all of a sudden you walk away. Bernie Federico back there, I know he'd give his left arm if he could shoot that puck. By the way, I remember playing golf with Bill Esnick. He played with the Boston Bruins years ago. He was a good pro. He played on the tour. And I said, how come the hockey players are all good golfers? He said, the biggest thing is we get to play in the summertime. Most athletes don't get to play. But of all the professional athletes, the hockey players are by far the best golfers that you'll play with throughout the year.
Bob, let me go back to '68. It was a couple of thrills that I'll never forget. Very important in my being. To get to do the Masters in '68 when you won was terrific, and to work with the likes of Henry Longhurst and the late John Durr and some other fellows that were announcing at that time. It was just a tremendous time for me. But more importantly, on Friday morning before our luncheon and rehearsal, there was no coverage on Thursday or Friday. They had a little luncheon to introduce some of the hierarchy at Augusta, and then we would had this rehearsal. But to go back to about 10 o'clock on that Friday morning, I got to go up to the Butler cabin and spend 15 minutes with Bob Jones. He was bedridden, all gnarled up with arthritis, but his mind was great. And the thrill of sitting at his bedside for 15 minutes and talking with him about golf and about the Masters and just about the world was one of the great thrills of my life. And of course, working with you, as you mentioned, for so many years at NBC, we had a lot of fun. We had some terrific dinners with Jim Simpson and Vince Scully, and I love the opportunity to gain a lot of knowledge from you. You were able to step into the broadcast situation, and really you fit in just like a glove there. You really enjoyed it.
I sure did, and I'd still be now here if that damn Peter Jacobson hadn't taken my job.
Peter is doing a fabulous job, of course. Peter is the most multi-talented athlete I've ever known, and also extremely generous. And I think probably what I'd like to end up with is reminding everybody how much you have meant to the game of golf, and especially to your roots here in Middle America. There's a football field over in Belleville named after you, and you worked tirelessly to revamp that beautiful stadium and get artificial turf for it, and you come and do so many things for charity in our area, and you still like to play, although you're not playing very much.
Well, I don't play much. At age 89, I can't beat anybody, so what the hell do you want to play? You know, it's all about golf. You want to win, and that's what it's about. I told you I had that chip on my shoulder. I got that chip off quite a few years ago, but St. Louis has been great to me. I got my start by winning the St. Louis Open in 1955. I beat Joe Switzer.
Joe.
Yeah, like Licorice. I beat him at the Old Horse and St. Louis Country Club. He was an Old Horse, and I beat him in 1955 in the finals. And Joe was a little on the heavy side then, and it was about 100 degrees, and he was just dripping water. I could see him right now. No wonder the hell I beat him. He beat himself that day.
I want everybody to kind of take a look at whoever's seated at your table. Take a look at the head table and just take a deep breath, and you'll understand how much Bob Goalby means to our community, how much this event tonight has meant to our community, and I hope you'll agree with me that golf is the greatest game. Thanks so much for coming, Bob. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ron Jacob.
Thank you, Ron Jacober.